So, of course, the left is out there trying to figure out ways to spend this pandemic to predict how society will change. And their predictions are pretty much the exact opposite of what we see. They never let a crisis go to waste to try and push a policy agenda, no matter how delusional that is. As they take a look at all the things that we are doing to manage this crisis, made completely possible by free market enterprise system and capitalism, and they're trying to spin this as, well, the capitalism has proven to fail, so we must go towards socialism and all that. I mean, it's interesting to take a look at how it is they're trying to spin this, right? For instance, we take a look at what the capitalist system brought us. It brought us the building of the infrastructure for the internet and communication systems. Government didn't build that. It was free market enterprises. The ability to avoid a complete shutdown of every business by people being able to work from home and still earn a paycheck. Government didn't build that. The free enterprise did. The ability to get food and supplies to the people who need it, the supply chains. Government didn't build that. The private market built the supply chains. That is now crucial in getting all the food and supplies to the people who need it. See, they're trying to say that all the success we see in managing this crisis brought to you by the capitalist system, private industry, the free market, is somehow a condemnation on the free market. I mean, that's just like saying that scientists that find the cure for the coronavirus, that and them finding a cure is a condemnation on science. I mean, it doesn't make any sense, the complete and total delusion that they are trying to engage in. And part of how they're trying to go off and spin this is taking a look at crisis management. What the government is currently looking at, for funding bills, right now suspending, student loan payments, suspending foreclosures and evictions, and the possibility of sending out a check. And what they're trying to, pull the wool over your eyes with is, how you handle a crisis is not the same as how you build a prosperous nation, right? They're two different things. Crisis management involves making a lot of decisions that would be horrible in normal circumstances, but is being done to kind of minimize the damaging effects of everything else going on. And people are going, well, if it's minimizing the effects now, how is it? Because we have the ability right now, as long as we get our political leaders in shape, to undo the damage that is being done by the crisis management. So, for instance, all the checks being sent out, which, by the way, where are they getting the money from that? Oh, yes, all the taxes that they collected from all the private business and industry. But if they kept doing that, they would tank all business and industry. But, we have the ability to go back later, cut spending, right? Reduce constraints on the free market and generate an economic boom to undo the damage, right? But if we continued the policies that we are doing right now beyond the crisis, we would never recover. In fact, things would only continue to get worse. And so they want to conflate crisis management as being the same activities that you would engage in to build a prosperous society. So I thought I would go through here and take a look at this political article. Coronavirus will change the world permanently. Here's how. And they get almost every one of these completely wrong, at least if anyone's actually paying attention, because people go towards more conservative, free market industry. For instance, the personal becomes dangerous. Okay, that one may be right. As we see the effects of the coronavirus getting very close and personal and hanging out in large crowds, that might take a hit for a while as people tend to want to, shorten their circles of human interaction towards people that they can trust. And so I understand, that personal can become dangerous as we now take a look at more virus and disease outbreaks coming from places like China. right? So I can see that, the personal becoming more dangerous. A new kind of patriotism. So they don't get everything right. But you're right, there will be a new instilling of patriotism, just like we saw after 9/11, but this patriotism, as we've seen over time, will go back to where we are right now. So that's not exactly a permanent change. That's more of a, hey, we hit a crisis. It really hit us. We needed to lean on each other during crisis, which, by the way, what they're trying to claim as socialism, conservatives have promoted at, charity, that you want to take care of yourself first, take care of your household first, and then from your own abundance, engage in charitable actions and activity of your own free will. And we are also seeing that, charitable giving and people, of their own free will helping out their neighbors, that is going on. But guess what? That wouldn't be possible if people didn't first focus on themselves and their household. It would be kind of hard to be concerned about whether or not your neighbor has enough to eat if you're scavenging for food, starving yourself. So it's because of the abundance by those who acted responsibly that they were able to have what they needed to help out other people during a time of crisis. Another conservative value. It's not coming from government. Right? Now, as far as this, patriotism, yeah, in the short term, maybe. Long term, I don't know. Now, a decline in polarization, right? Now, this is very optimistic because I can go through here and I can take a look online and all on the internet where the Democrats are still trying to engage a lot in politics, political spinning. We see the complete and total disgrace of the media, politicizing every aspect of this crisis, trying to undermine the response. Oh, it doesn't go, it goes too far. And then coming back, oh, no, it didn't go far enough. As they switch back and forth trying to attack the president, I don't see, much of a decline in polarization. And I don't really know what is going to decline the polarization other than the fact that, maybe if the left gets shaken up enough about how, it's private business and industries that they've railed against, whose profits and infrastructure that they have built is what is saving us right now and not big government. Unless they wake up from that, they're going to, continue because of places like Political, the Hill TV on YouTube and the New York Times, spinning, politicizing this and deliberately misrepresenting the facts. They're going to divide deeper into their political corners as they try to take a look at the actions of crisis management and try and reinforce the idea that crisis management is how you would handle society in normal times. So I'm pretty skeptical about a decline in polarization, although, there are some hopes of that as people are taking a look at how the Democrats are holding up the coronavirus relief, instead of, getting it passed so that, relief can be provided to the average citizen. And the Democrats are holding it up because they're trying to get, hold the American people hostage to additional pork spending to places like Planned Parenthood, who then turn around and funnel a large portion of that money back into the campaign coffers of the Democrats. So they're still trying to engage in political money laundering in order to agree to the coronavirus. And of course, their complete spin on why they're holding it up. Oh, it gives too much away to corporations. It's like, no, the money, a large portion of the money gets direct deposited into the bank accounts of individuals who the government is banning from being able to go to work, right? People who actually need it. Now, are there some financial assistance for businesses? Yes, because if we don't, these businesses go under, unemployment could go up to 30%, and then we are screwed for the long term. So keeping these businesses alive so that there are jobs for people to go back to when this crisis ends is critically important here, people. But the Democrats, they want to destroy the economy because the more you suffer, the more they think they can spin it, and the more they think they have a chance in the 2020 election. Their success depends on your suffering. right? A return to faith and serious experts. A return to faith and serious experts. It was the so-called experts that failed at every step of the way. It was what? The experts at the WHO, the World Health Organization, that basically bowed down to Chinese propaganda back in January, telling everybody this is not transmissible person to person. Or are these the experts, in the so-called government institutions such as the CDC that botched the rollout of the testing kits? Or are these seriously, a return to faith and serious experts, right? I guess it really depends on who you're talking about as serious experts. Are we talking about people who have actually qualify as experts, actually know what they're talking about? Or are we talking about the bureaucratic heads of these big national, international organizations that are more interested in politics than they are about the data? I have, a much more, skepticism about, the return to serious experts, as I believe the left is going to try and promote that as all the political hacks leading these institutions and political hacks that are trying to get their 15 minutes of fame rather than people who are actually focusing on the data. So I guess serious experts, really depends on whether or not, we, really care about what they know versus the political agenda they're pushing. So the right has always had a faith in actual experts. It's all the political hacks that run the institutions and organizations that we have railed against. All right. So there's that. Less individualism. Wrong. There's going to be more individualism. We're going to see people taking more personal responsibility, I think. We're going to see people taking a look at what's going on and say that, okay, now I need to engage in serious, financial conservatism, which means having 3 to 6 months worth of expenses saved up in an emergency fund. We're going to see places or people going through and engaging in buying emergency food supplies. Not just, places like Florida and maybe some of the southeastern states, that are pretty much familiar with emergency food supplies due to all the hurricanes they get in a regular year. But we're going to now start seeing that on a nationwide basis. People are probably also going to stock up on a 3 to 6 month emergency food supply, just like they do with the finances, and probably some people are probably going to stock up on emergency toilet paper supplies. All right, so we're going to see people more taking a look at how to protect their own family first, and then as far as going out and worrying about other people, doing that more out of their abundance versus forcing government. So I don't see the end of individualism, and engaging in charity and helping thy neighbor. That's not a socialist value. That's actually a religious value. You'll see, in the Bible, yes, helping out your neighbor is a good thing, but not to the detriment of your own family. All right. So I don't see this less individualism as they're promoting it. Right. Yes, people are going to go back to more individualism of how they need to take steps and precautions to make sure they ensure the protection and safety of their own family. But, in times of crisis, everybody, it's always been a situation where people engage in charitable actions and helping out thy neighbor. But that is not an individualism versus collectivism, right? That is, you did the responsibility on the individual side to ensure the needs of your family, and now you're engaging in, helping out the community just like a good citizen and just like, Christianity and Judaism would teach, right? Okay, so here it goes. Religious worship will look different. Okay, yeah, I'd see that as in this time of crisis that, the way that religion is now live streaming and all that, I can see where offering that on a regular basis and allowing people to, be able to click a link, watching your service on YouTube in order to donate our tithe, rather than actually physically traveling to the church and there. But, my church, I had already started live streaming, on YouTube, the services before this hit. And they did that, for the senior citizens who are more in a nursing home so that they could still feel connected, to the community, still get the service and, still be able to observe their religious practices. So maybe new forms of reform. Well, it depends on how you mean that. If it means that reform by getting rid of all this government bureaucracy, all of this red tape, all these regulations, which will be good for bringing back the economy, yes, and we are seeing that right now. Think of how much all these regulations and big, gigantic bureaucracies that have built up in government has delayed and hindered the response, and how Trump, as he's going through, he's, ordering, government agencies to do X. They come back and go, well, we can't do X because of this regulation. And Trump goes, gone. Now do it. That is the good thing, getting rid of the massive bureaucratic waste, which all this elimination of massive bureaucratic waste could help lend into reducing our expenses at the federal level and cut spending to undo the damage by the stimulus package, right? So yes, there will need to be a lot of new reforms. Now, as far as the reforms that they're looking at, not so much. Going through here and taking a look, okay, so regulatory barriers to online tools will fall. I agree to that. I will agree. We are seeing here that, that being able to, do more stuff online, whether that be in health or in business and all of that. Hey, yes, that will definitely, the barriers to that will decrease. Healthier digital lifestyle. Perhaps we can use our time with our own devices to rethink the kinds of community we can create through them. Okay, yes, but whether that's going to lead to healthier or non-healthier, I don't know. Whether it's part of that whole, social distancing will continue for a while and therefore will maintain more connections online. This one I'm kind of iffy about. The healthier digital lifestyle and being able to connect, because it's been one of the big problems we've been facing is because we do so much of our interactions online, we've created all these bubbles that have created so much division in life or in the country. A boon to virtual reality. Okay, yeah, I'll agree with that. I mean, they're not all bad. The rise of telemedicine. Yes, I agree with that. An opening for stronger family care. The coronavirus pandemic has revealed gaping holes in our care infrastructure. Yeah, a lot of those gaping holes were, part of the government bureaucracy, regulations, and attempt to control and, micromanage the healthcare. So yeah, as we toss out those regulations and all that and get government out of the healthcare industry, yes, we can see a stronger opening for better family care and management. But how are they trying to spin this? As millions of American families have been forced to navigate the crisis without a safety net, with loved ones sick and children suddenly home from school indefinitely, they've been forced to make impossible choices among their family. Their health and financial ruin, after all. Meaningful child care assistance is extremely limited. Access to long-term care is piecemeal at best, and too few workers have access to paid family and medical leave. Okay, an instance here about this whole paid sick leave and, paid medical leave. We have paid leave. It's called PTO, paid time off, right? I don't get this whole push towards, taking some of the PTO you get and putting it into a more restrictive, sick leave, is a benefit. But of course, I guess some of the argument is, no, they won't, take away from our PTO time. We want to manage all of our paid time off time just for vacation and going out and having fun. We don't want to have to manage it between, vacation and sick. We want it as two separate things. Well, yeah, but where do you think the companies are going to get their sick leave from? They're going to reduce your PTO for it. And so now you have less control over when and how you're going to take time off of work. So we go through that. Government becomes big pharma. No. Actually, what we are seeing here is that it's a good thing our pharmaceutical industries operate the way they have. Take a look at, all of the profits that pharmaceutical companies, you hear about, and they reinvest that into medical research and, researching new drugs and new, cures. And, a lot of the research that they've done over the years are funded over the years. And all that has led to the creation of drugs that turns out may be very effective in fighting the coronavirus. Their past actions may have already provided us a cure and we didn't know it because we didn't know about the coronavirus. But it's also, given the pharmaceutical industries, the profits that they have needed in order to quickly fund research and try and develop a vaccine for this, to which we are already seeing rolling out and going into human testing. You think the incompetence of big government bureaucracies that failed at every level of this is who we're going to want to put, our lives in the hands of? Are you kidding? No, we have seen the reaction to everything being, a big praise and a boost to the pharmaceutical and private industries. But, how they try to spin this is all, pretty fun. Science reigns again. One could hope that the left will finally come back to science. I know, the left tries to claim that they're the party of science and all that, but what they engage in is not actually science. They just engage in a bunch of delusion and then claim it as science. We can only hope that the left will finally re-acknowledge science and actually engage in real science and not trying to manipulate, to their own political beliefs and system. I mean, come on, leftists. You actually believe transgenderism is a real thing, right? You don't even believe in biology, right? But, yes, hopefully we can get back to real serious scientists and scientific studies and scientific data and less of what we've seen from the left of all this garbage, half-baked science, that doesn't actually exist, trying to claim, that there was science behind all their garbage, that they've been pushing. Congress can finally go virtual. Hopefully. I mean, it would be an interesting concept there, wouldn't it? That we could, go ahead, get our VR goggles on and be able to watch, Congress as if we are sitting there. Or the idea that, Congress taking advantage of all the technology spends less time in DC, and more time in their home states and mingling with their constituencies and having conversations with the people they actually represent or elected to represent to figure out what the actual problems are, and then vote based off of that. Because right now, most, elected officials, they don't intermingle with us common folks. I mean, they'll come and give a rally, but they never really spend much time talking. I mean, they'll do the occasional photo op, but they never actually spend any time listening to their constituents. They're too busy trying to push their own beliefs on to their constituents rather than representing their constituents. So that might actually be something that is good. Big government makes a comeback. The exact opposite. Because here's the thing, conservatives, we have always said limited government. That doesn't mean no government, right? That has never meant no government. So when conservatives have gone out there and they've talked about limited government, What have we been talking about? We're saying the government should stick to its core constitutional responsibilities, the things that it is actually good at, like national defense, national security, right? And being able to protect the population, right? And get rid of all of this extra garbage that they don't even have the constitutional authority to do, but they do it anyways because they try to spin, manipulate, and read between the lines, of the Constitution. Get rid of all that garbage, and we would have a much, more effective government and government-run a government system, during times of crisis. And what we are seeing here, it was the big, massive bureaucracy of government that has delayed the response to the coronavirus. How much Trump has had to go through and create and write up a bunch of different executive orders to sign to get rid of the big, massive, bureaucracy that's been hindering the response to this crisis. And as the government has been shrinking, as far as, regulatory and bureaucracy, as that has been shrinking, the response has been getting better. We have been seeing, improvements in the response. So no, big government was the flipping problem. It's going to a smaller, more limited government that focuses more on its core responsibilities rather than these big bureaucratic institutions that we'll be going to. All right? Government services regains a cachet. The Reagan era is over. No, this reinforced the Reagan era. Of the idea of limited government, expanding capitalism and free markets, and the need to cut spending. A new civic federalism. Just as the trauma of fighting World War II laid the foundations of a stronger American government and national solidarity, the coronavirus might sow the seeds for a new civic federalism in which states and localities become centers of justice, solidarity, and far-sighted democratic problem solving. Well, yeah, see, this is the part. They just contradicted themselves, right? The political just contradicted itself. It was talking about big government makes a comeback, and then it goes through and says here later on that more people are going to be focusing on the importance of local governance instead of federal government. They just contradicted themselves in this article. I mean, I agree that more and more political issues are going to be focusing more on the local level because, the centers of control, right? The closer you are to home, the more you believe in control. You believe in communism, as parents raising your kids. You're going to dictate to them everything about their lives. But as we expand more and more outside of our homes, the more and more we become limited government, free market capitalism. We don't want decisions being made, in DC. We want decisions being made in our local communities. Because we want say and control of our lives, of the rules in which we live under. We don't want them dictated from hundreds of miles away. All right. The rules we live by won't all apply. America's response to the coronavirus pandemic has revealed a simple truth. So many policies that our elected officials have long told us were impossible and impractical were eminently possible and practical all along. This is wrong. Again, the policies in which you engage in during crisis management are not good policies for peacetime developing and building a prosperous nation, a prosperous society. All right? You don't build up, massive wealth in the economy and throughout the population through crisis management techniques. Right? So again, they're misreading the entire situation. And by the way, again, why do you think we believe that we can afford to do this one-time stimulus? Worst case scenario, maybe we have to do it a second time. It's because of the free market capitalist system and all of the regulations being tossed out the door that we believe that we can come back from this, the damage that is going to be done by the stimulus, and undo the damage through, responsible fiscal policy. Of course, the responsible fiscal policy is unlikely considering the idiots that are in D.C. I'd say one of the things that will change is maybe we'll take a closer look at the politicians filled with PC and we'll get out all the swamp rats. First of all, eliminate all the Democrats. That would clear things up quite a bit. All right. Revive trust in institutions. Again, wrong. It's more trust in private institutions, private businesses, because it's been private businesses that have been bailing us out of this crisis the entire time. It is the government institutions that failed, institutions at the national and international levels. The UN is a complete failure. The World Health Organization is a complete failure. As an organization, they failed at every level. So it's not going to be revised trust in institutions. It's going to be increased trust in private businesses that have been saving our asses. Expect a political uprising. Yes. Towards more Republican conservatism and limited government. Not towards this crap of, more socialism and communism. Electronic voting goes mainstream. Yeah, we'll have to figure out the security precautions to protect it from hackers. That's why we don't do electronic voting, is because of the security risk to hackers. Could you imagine if everyone was able to just log on from their computer at home to cast their votes, what Russia could do in hacking that, or any other country with a bunch of cyber hackers, or just people looking to go through and cause chaos, right? We'll have to go through. Election day will become election month. That will actually require a constitutional amendment. Voting by mail will become the norm. Voting by mail is kind of a stupid thing, in my opinion, because things change and they change so rapidly. And, you cast your vote, you sent it in, something changes, all of a sudden you wish you would have voted the other way, but now you can't. More restraints on mass consumption. No, I do not see that. There might be more fiscal constraint on the individual level, where people engage in more financially responsible behaviors, to save up for another crisis. Maybe in that sense. But as far as constraints by the government, no. Stronger domestic supply chains. Yes. Brought to you by the private industry, capitalism, the free market. Shoot, governments take over a year to redo maybe 1 mile section of road on the highway. The inequality gap will widen. Well, it's been widening for a long time in Democrat states. Look at the income, inequality of, California, but inequality gap, there is no real inequality in the United States. The inequality is based off of your own individual decisions. You made decisions, they didn't go good. Other people made different decisions and it turned out great. There's no real actual, inequality. It's just, you saying the results of the decisions that you made somehow makes life, unequal. And plus, what is, inequality that they're trying to define here? Are we trying to say, the difference here is that Democrats believe equality means equal outcomes. Republicans believe that equality means you're equal at the starting line and your finish line is based off of, what you did. The hunger for diversion, less communal dining. That will be for a while. Yeah. The idea of going into a restaurant, sitting down and eating might take a hit for a while. The revival of parks, questionable. I think you've ignored the tendency of people to try and get back to a sense of normalcy after a crisis ends. So if you weren't much of going out to the parks before, chances are you're not going to be much afterwards. You're probably still going to be more of a person that stays home and does computer stuff. But that depends on how much you actually decide to change. A change in our understanding of change. Okay, whatever. The tyranny of habit, no more. This again, saying that now we've, broken our habits and everything because of all the change and all that. Now people will go back to their normal habits. Most people. Some people will change because they like the change in their habits. But once things get back to normal and people get into a routine, they're either going to go back to the routine that they previously had, or they're just going to create more new routines, right? The habit of people to create routines for their life is just normal. So as we can see here, there are some things that I can agree with here. And there are some things where they are completely spinning out of their butt and trying to, claim that the success of the free market somehow actually proves its failures or failings. I don't understand, that logic, but, the leftists and logic, go figure. So anyways, that's it for this episode. Let me know what you think. How do you think society will change? I think it will go towards more conservative values of, limiting, top-down, government, and more towards local government and, an explosion of free market capitalism, right? Where people focus more on engaging in more financially responsible behavior, cutting down their spending enough to build up emergency fund and emergency supplies to weather the next storm with. Because, a lot of people, if you're in the Financial Peace University community, they're talking about how, financial peace takes on a whole new meaning in a situation like this. All right. So let me know what you think. All right. Down in the comments below. Now, don't forget to hit subscribe and the notification bell so you'll always be notified when the new video drops.